In October 2025, something changed in the world. HBO released their series IT Welcome to Derry on October 26, and in the weeks leading up to it, people started seeing things. Red balloons floating where they shouldn't be. A figure in Victorian costume standing in places no one should stand. These aren't marketing stunts. These are real encounters from real people who came face to face with something they can't explain. 7 stories, 7 witnesses, and every single one of them wishes they never looked back. Story number 1, the Bangor Bridge. I live in Bangor, Maine. Population about 30,000. October had been cold that year, and on October 15, I was driving home from my shift at the hospital around 11 p.m. I'm a nurse, so late nights are normal for me. I know these roads like the back of my hand. The road home takes me past the Kendaskig Stream, which runs right through downtown. There's a walking path that follows the stream, and most nights it's empty. That night, as I crossed the bridge, I saw something that made me slow down. A red balloon, just floating there above the stream, perfectly still despite the wind that was strong enough to move the trees. I stopped the car in the middle of the bridge. No other cars were around. The balloon wasn't moving. It was just hanging there in the darkness about 10 feet above the water. Then I saw him, standing on the path below the bridge, a clown, Victorian era costume, white face paint that seemed to glow in the darkness, orange hair, and he was looking directly up at me. I felt my stomach drop. My hands went cold on the steering wheel. The clown didn't move. He just stood there staring at me with his head tilted slightly to the side. I hit the gas and drove home as fast as I could. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely get the key in the door. Once inside, I locked everything. Windows, doors. I even checked the basement door twice. I tried to convince myself it was just someone in costume, maybe practicing for Halloween, but it was October 15. Too early. And nobody dresses like that around here. 3 hours later, around 2 a.m., I heard something outside my window. I live on the 2nd floor of an old house, so there's nothing outside that window except a 20-foot drop. But I heard it. A tapping, slow and deliberate. Tap, tap. I didn't want to look. Every part of me screamed not to look. But I did. He was there. The clown, floating outside my 2nd-story window. His white face pressed against the glass. His yellow eyes locked on mine. He smiled. His teeth were too long, too sharp. Then he raised one white gloved hand and waved at me. Slowly, back and forth, like he knew me. Like we were old friends. I screamed and fell backward off my bed. When I looked again, he was gone. But on the window, written in what looked like condensation, were 4 words, "See you in 27. I called the police. They came and searched the area but found nothing. No footprints, no ladder. No explanation for how anyone could have been at a 2nd-story window. The officer told me it was probably just a dream. But the next morning, when I checked the window, the words were still there. Faint, but visible. I moved out of that house 3 days later. I don't drive over that bridge anymore. And I've started having nightmares about drowning. I don't know why. I've never been afraid of water before. Story number 2, the campus encounter. My name is Marcus. I'm a college student at the University of Southern Maine in Portland. October 20. I was walking back to my dorm from the library around midnight. I'd been studying for midterms and lost track of time. The campus was dead quiet. Most students were either asleep or at parties off campus. I was cutting through the main quad when I noticed someone standing near the fountain in the center. At first, I thought it was another student, but as I got closer, I realized the figure wasn't moving at all, not swaying, not shifting weight, just standing perfectly still in the darkness. 20 feet away, I could see it was a clown, full costume, Victorian style with the ruffled collar, white face, orange hair, and he was holding something, a smartphone, my smartphone, or at least it looked exactly like mine. Same case, same screen protector. I checked my pocket. My phone was still there. The clown was looking at the phone screen. Then he spoke. His voice was wrong. It sounded like multiple voices speaking slightly out of sync with each other. He said my full name, Marcus Theodore Williams. Nobody calls me by my middle name. Nobody even knows my middle name except my family. Then he said something that made my blood freeze. He said, "Your brother forgives you. My brother died 4 years ago. Car accident. I was driving. I've never told anyone about it. The guilt has eaten at me every single day since. But I never talked about it. Not to friends, not to therapists. Nobody knew." I started backing up slowly. The clown tilted his head, still holding that phone. Then he whispered, "You'll float too, Marcus." Just like David did. David. That was my brother's name. How did he know? The clown started walking toward me. His movements were wrong. His joints bent at angles that shouldn't be possible. Like a puppet being pulled by invisible strings. I ran. I don't remember much after that. Just running. My heart pounding. My lungs burning. I remember reaching my dorm and collapsing in the stairwell. My roommate found me there 20 minutes later. I was crying. I hadn't cried since the funeral. I reported it to campus security the next day. They checked the cameras. The footage shows me walking through the quad alone, talking to nothing, running from nothing. But when they played back the audio, you could hear 2 voices, mine and something else. Something that whispered my brother's name over and over. I transferred schools 3 weeks later, but I still have nightmares. In them, I'm driving the car again. The night of the accident. But this time, when I look over at my brother in the passenger seat, he's wearing a clown mask. And he's smiling. Story number 3, the Derry Parks. This happened in Derry, Pennsylvania. I know the name is a weird coincidence. My wife and I had just moved there in September for my job. Small town, about 5,000 people. Everyone knows everyone. On October 8th, we decided to take a walk through the local park around 8 p.m. It was called Chestnut Ridge Park. The park was empty. Too cold for most people. We were walking the main trail when we heard something behind us. Footsteps. But when we turned around, nobody was there. My wife, Jennifer, laughed it off. Said it was probably a deer or something. But I felt uneasy. We kept walking. The footsteps continued, always staying the same distance behind us, never getting closer, never falling back, just matching our pace exactly. We stopped. The footsteps stopped. We started walking faster. The footsteps got faster. Then Jennifer saw it. A red balloon tied to a park bench ahead of us. That's when we both stopped. There had been no balloon when we entered the park 10 minutes ago, and it was moving, not swaying in the wind, moving, like something was pulling it, leading it toward the tree line. We should have left right then, but something made us follow it. I can't explain why. It was like we weren't in control of our own legs. The balloon led us off the main path into a small clearing surrounded by trees. In the center of the clearing was a storm drain, old, rusted, with an iron grate that was slightly open. The balloon was floating above the drain, perfectly still. Then we heard it. A voice from inside the drain. A child's voice. It said, "Help us. Please help us." Jennifer grabbed my arm. She wanted to leave, but the voice called out again. "We're stuck down here. Please." I knelt down next to the drain. I pulled out my phone and turned on the flashlight. I shined it down into the darkness. At first, I saw nothing. Just water and concrete. Then I saw them. Eyes. Yellow eyes. Dozens of them, all staring up at me from the darkness. The voice changed. It wasn't a child anymore. It was something else, something old and wrong. It said, "Time to float, time to float, time to float." The words echoed up from the drain, getting louder and louder. Then a hand reached up, a white, gloved hand, with fingers that were too long, too thin. The nails were black and pointed. Jennifer screamed. We ran. Behind us, we could hear something crawling out of the drain. Something big, something moving fast. The trees around us seemed to close in. The path kept shifting. Every direction looked the same. We finally found the parking lot and got to our car. I looked back once. At the edge of the tree line stood the clown. Watching us, he waved. Then he stepped backward into the shadows and disappeared. When we got home, we found something in Jennifer's jacket pocket. A Polaroid photo. It was a picture of us, kneeling by the drain. But in the photo, behind us, standing in the trees, was the clown. The photo was dated 1989. We weren't even born yet in 1989. We moved out of Derry 2 weeks later. Story number 4, the delivery. I work as a late-night delivery driver in Detroit. On October 12, I got a delivery order for an address on the east side around 1 a.m. The address was for an old apartment building, 6 stories. Most of the units were abandoned. But the order came through my app, so I figured someone still lived there. I parked out front and grabbed the food, pizza and wings. The building's front door was broken, just hanging open. The lobby smelled like mold and something else. Something sweet and rotten. The elevator didn't work, so I took the stairs. The delivery was for apartment 413, 4th floor. As I climbed the stairs, I started hearing something above me. Footsteps, but they were going down. Someone was coming toward me. I stopped and waited, figuring I'd let them pass. But the footsteps stopped too, right above me, on the landing between floors. I couldn't see anyone, but I could hear breathing, heavy breathing, like someone who'd been running. I called out, "Hello." No answer, just breathing. I started climbing again, slowly. When I reached the landing, nobody was there, but there was something on the ground. A playing card. The Joker. I didn't touch it. I kept climbing. 4th floor, The hallway was dark. Half the lights were out. I checked the apartment numbers. 401, 403, 405. They were all on the left side. I kept walking. The hallway seemed longer than it should be. I passed 407, then 409, then 411. Finally, I reached 413. I knocked. No answer. I knocked again. Then I heard it from inside the apartment. Children laughing. Multiple children. High-pitched and overlapping. But according to the delivery instructions, this was a single-person order. An adult. The door opened. Just a crack. I couldn't see who opened it. The apartment inside was completely dark. I said, "Pizza delivery." A voice from inside said, "Leave it at the door." But the voice was wrong. Too many voices speaking at once. Just like in the other stories I'd heard about. I set the food down and started backing away. That's when I noticed something. The door to apartment 411. It was open now. I knew it had been closed when I walked past it. Inside that apartment, I could see something. A shape. Tall, wearing white, just standing there in the darkness. I turned and walked quickly toward the stairs. Behind me, I heard the door to 413 open fully. Then I heard footsteps in the hallway, following me. I started running. The stairwell door was 20 feet away, 10 feet, 5 feet. I reached it and yanked it open. Standing on the stairs was the clown, blocking my path. He was smiling. His teeth were impossibly long. His eyes were yellow and reflected the light like an animal's. He said, "You forgot the tip." Then he held up his hand. In it was a red balloon. I pushed past him and ran down the stairs. I didn't look back. I got to my car and drove away so fast I left tire marks. When I checked my phone later, I saw something that made me feel sick. The delivery address. It didn't exist. I looked it up. That building had been condemned 3 years ago. Nobody lived there. And my delivery app showed something else. The order had been placed at 1 a.m. But the timestamp on my phone showed I'd made the delivery at 4 a.m. I'd lost 3 hours and didn't remember any of it. Story number 5, the birthday photos. My name is Sarah. I live in a suburb outside Chicago. On October 18, my daughter Emma had her 7th birthday party. We had it at our house. 15 kids. Bouncy castle in the backyard. The whole thing. My husband took probably 300 photos throughout the day. 3 days later, on October 21, I was going through the photos on my laptop to make an album. That's when I saw it. In the first photo, taken around 2 p.m., there was someone in the background, at the edge of our yard, near the fence. A clown. Victorian costume. White face. Orange hair. Nobody at the party had hired a clown. Nobody remembered seeing a clown. I kept scrolling through the photos. In each one, the clown was closer. Photo from 2 p.m. Z at the fence. Photo from 3 p.m. and near the gift table. Photo from 4 p.m. Z standing with the children during the group photo. Between Emma and her best friend. Neither girl remembered anyone standing between them. The photos got worse. At 5 p.m., there was a photo taken through our kitchen window. My husband had been photographing Emma blowing out her candles from inside. But in the reflection of the window, you could see the clown standing outside, looking in, his face pressed against the glass. The final photo was the worst. At 6 p.m., I'd gone upstairs to get Emma's jacket. I took a photo of her bedroom, because I just cleaned it and wanted to remember. In the corner of the photo, behind her bed, was the clown. In her bedroom, in our house. But the metadata on the photo showed something impossible. The timestamp said 6 a.m., not 6 p.m. The camera had recorded it as 12 hours earlier. That meant at 6 a.m., when we were all asleep, something had been in Emma's room. I checked every photo from the party. In the final photo, the clown was holding something. A sign. Written in what looked like blood, it said, "Your turn." I called the police. They investigated but found nothing. No signs of break-in, no fingerprints, nothing. But Emma started having nightmares after that. She said a man in white visited her room at night. He told her stories about floating, about how everyone floats down there. She's 7 years old. She shouldn't know about any of this. We sold the house. We moved to a different state. But last week, Emma came to me with a drawing she'd made at school. It was a picture of a clown holding a red balloon. Under the picture, she'd written, "He says he's waiting for me." She's 7 years old. She shouldn't know how to spell waiting. We never taught her that word. Story number 6, the abandoned school. I'm a photographer. I do urban exploration. I take pictures of abandoned buildings for my website. On October 14, I went to an old school building in Cleveland that had been closed since the 1990s. 3 stories, probably 100 rooms. It was around 7 p.m. when I arrived. I had about 2 hours of good light left. The building was easy to get into. Someone had already broken a window on the first floor. Inside, everything was exactly how you'd expect. Overturned desks, graffiti on the walls, old textbooks scattered on the floor. I started on the first floor, taking photos of the classrooms and hallways. On the second floor, I found something strange. One of the classrooms had been set up recently. The desks were arranged in perfect rows. The chalkboard had been cleaned, and on the teacher's desk at the front of the room was a red balloon, still inflated, floating perfectly despite being in a building that had been sealed for almost 30 years. I took several photos of the room. Then I noticed something written on the chalkboard. In fresh chalk, it said, "Class is in session." Below that was a date, October 14th, 2025. Today's date. My hands started shaking. Someone had been here recently. Maybe they were still here. I decided to leave. But as I was walking toward the stairs, I heard something. Music, faint, coming from the floor above me. Carnival music, the kind you'd hear at a circus. Calliope music. I stood at the bottom of the stairs listening. The music was getting louder. Then I heard footsteps above me, heavy footsteps, walking across the ceiling of the second floor. I should have left. I should have run. But I'm a photographer. I needed to know what was up there. I climbed the stairs slowly, my camera ready. The third floor was darker than the others. Most of the windows had been boarded up. The music was coming from the end of the hallway, from what looked like it used to be the auditorium. The auditorium doors were open. Inside, I could see rows of old seats, the stage at the front, and standing in the center of the stage was the clown. Spotlight on him, even though there was no electricity in the building. He was juggling 3 red balls, but the balls weren't balls. They were human hearts. Fresh, still dripping. I raised my camera and took a photo. The flash went off. The clown stopped juggling. He turned his head toward me. Slowly. His neck kept turning. Further than a human neck should turn. Completely around. His face was now looking at me, even though his body was still facing forward. He smiled. Then he spoke. His voice filled the entire auditorium. He said, "Did you get my good side?" Then he started walking toward me, not down from the stage. He walked through the air, floating, his feet moving like he was walking on stairs that weren't there. I ran. I fell down the stairs, hit my head. I don't remember getting out of the building, but I woke up in my car 3 blocks away. It was midnight. 5 hours had passed. My camera was in my lap. I checked the photos. The ones I took of the organized classroom were there. But the last photo, the one I took of the clown on stage, it showed something different. The photo showed me, standing on the stage, with the clown behind me, his hand on my shoulder, both of us smiling. I had never been on that stage. I never went near that stage, but the photo shows me there. And written across the bottom of the photo, in blood, were 3 words, "Next time, stay." Story number 7, the paramedic call. This is the most recent one. It happened to me on October 24. I'm a paramedic in New York City. I work the overnight shift. We got a call around 3 a.m., possible overdose. Address was in Brooklyn, old warehouse district that's mostly been converted to lofts. My partner and I arrived at the building. 6 floors. The call came from apartment 504. We took the elevator up. The building was nice, renovated. Nothing seemed unusual. We reached the 5th floor and found apartment 504. The door was open, just slightly. We knocked and announced ourselves. No answer. We pushed the door open. The apartment inside was empty, completely empty. No furniture, no person, nothing. My partner checked his phone. The address was correct, but clearly nobody lived here. We were about to leave when we heard it. From somewhere in the apartment. Children laughing. We looked at each other. The apartment was empty. We could see every room from where we stood. The laughter was coming from the bathroom. The door was closed. I opened it slowly. The bathroom was old. Original fixtures from when the building was a warehouse. A cast iron tub. Black and white tile. And written on the mirror, in what looked like lipstick, were the words, "You all float." Then we saw it, in the bathtub. The tub was full of water. Floating on the surface were dozens of red balloons, but underneath the water we could see something else. Body parts. Arms, legs, a torso. But they weren't real. They were white, made of plastic, mannequin parts. My partner started to hyperventilate. I pulled him out of the bathroom. As we were leaving, the bathroom light flickered. In that brief moment of darkness, I saw something in the mirror's reflection. The clown, standing behind us, his yellow eyes glowing. But when the light came back on, nobody was there. We ran out of the apartment. Called it in as a prank call. But when we got back to the ambulance, we found something on the dashboard. A Polaroid photo. It showed the inside of that bathroom. But in the photo, the bathtub wasn't full of mannequin parts. It was full of real bodies. Children's bodies. And standing over the tub was the clown, Looking directly at the camera, we turned the photo over. Written on the back was a message. "Thank you for making a house call. See you soon." And below that, written in perfect handwriting, were both of our home addresses, complete with apartment numbers. That was 3 days ago. Since then, both my partner and I have been seeing things. Red balloons appearing in impossible places. Footprints outside our windows. The smell of circus popcorn in empty rooms. And last night, I heard tapping on my bedroom window. When I looked, he was there, floating outside my window on the 8th floor, waving at me, smiling with those impossibly long teeth. I don't know what to do. The police won't help. They think we're crazy, but we're not. Something is coming for us. Something that's been waiting. Something that returns. And I think we've run out of time.